Welcome back to the channel, everyone. In this video, I will be taking you to Split, Croatia on a day trip from Dubrovnik. If you haven't seen the last videos on the best things to see and eat in Dubrovnik, along with Ultimate City Walls tour, make sure to go check those out. In Split, we will tour Diocletian's palace, show you all the things to see in Split that people often miss, and a great place to eat, who Diocletian was, and more. So we just are leaving Dubrovnik here to go to Split for a day tour. This is a 147,000 square foot castle or palace built by the Roman Emperor Diocletian. He rose from a farmer up to a general and then the Emperor of Rome, and is the only Roman emperor to die from natural causes. I'm really excited to see this city today and can't wait to take you along with me. This guy was a horrible man, well, according to history, because of what he did to Christians, but karma always comes back to bite you in the ass. Can't wait to show you how it did for him.
This is it. We are now standing in the sea. The sea was going all the way until the palace. So here we see the fort. The fort that is still there. That's where we came in. You see that one behind. The roof is missing, but actually everything is still there. You see these arches here. There's those arches here inside. They just built houses into the Roman. They just built the houses into the origin. And so the story of Split goes like this. We are going back into the 3rd century. And 3rd century was already bad time for the Romans. It was already the beginning of the end. Roman Empire was huge. It had parts of Asia, parts of Africa, almost the whole Europe, everything. It was just very huge. And all those famous rulers that we know, they were dead for several hundred years already. And now there was no strong hand to keep the empire, and everything was falling apart. People were living worse and worse. From the sides, everybody wanted to enter the empire, so the borders were attacked, and inside they had wars too. Inside, everybody wanted the power, and they fought for the big throne of the Roman Empire, and they fought each other, and then everybody killed everybody. 80 people changed themselves in a matter of less than 50 years. So somebody came on the throne, and he was there ruling for 2-3 months. Then he got killed. Then next guy came, he got killed. Next guy, and so on and so on. And so it all went on for years and years and years. Rome, it was so fast that the Rome wasn't anymore the capital city. It was just became a province, because who ruled? He ruled for their fort or whatever until he got defeated. And that's when Diocletian was born. And when Diocletian was born. So he was born in a town a little bit away from Split. The town is called Solin, but he's going to come up in our story. That's why I mean. Solin is outside of Split. It was a town, so the palace was still not there. So Diocletian is born there. He goes to Turkey and he becomes an emperor. And he divides the empire into 2 parts. He sees this is just too big, I can't do this by myself. And he called his best buddy Maximian, and they two share the empire. And Maximian takes the west, Diocletian takes the east. And they rule for 20 years. They bring peace and prosperity, and they manage to rule 20 years and to not get killed. And after 20 years, they go to retirement. And so Diocletian builds this palace for his retirement home. So this is maybe the oldest retirement home in the world. When you see the bell tower, that's standing somehow like this. And then this is the church, still today, and then the bell tower was built. And now what we're going to enter, here, there's the cellar. And the cellars are also important for our story later. And Diocletian lives there, he dies. After Diocletian, 400 more years, it looks like this, 600 and something. Somebody comes from the north, from behind the mountains, and they destroy the town that I mentioned, Solin. Solin gets destroyed, And then the people from Solin flee into Split. And they changed the town completely. Now, of course, it's not a palace anymore. There are no army, but it has to be the town. And how they break off the beautiful piece of palace? They throw everything down in the ground, in the cellars, and everything. And then the cellars get full of that stuff, and they throw everything down in the cellars. It becomes like a garbage, and so cellars gets full. And nobody gets through the cellars, and nobody walks through the cellars for 1,000 years. And this city outside of Split, Solin, that's completely buried under the ground. And in those 1,000 years, people are having completely different town on top of that. And they forget completely everything about the history, about the creation, about everything. All the way until 19th century, 1900, one guy finds the amphitheater in Solin. And that was like the first clue, of course, and he knew there must be a town. Right. And since then, 1900, now 122 years, we are taking out of the cellars these original parts and trying to put it together like to make some story. This was the level of the palace, and this is the original Roman mosaic.
Oh, that's cool mosaic. Diocletian's palace is the main draw in Split. You could easily spend 2 or 3 days in the city exploring the old town. As you walk through the old city, you can see how the people have transformed this continuously inhabited space since the Roman times, and how the ages of architectural influence have changed it. You can see medieval, Renaissance, Baroque, and Roman architecture all within one complex. These mixtures of architectural style are the reason it was named a UNESCO site in 1979. You can tour the palace for free, but there are a few places where it is ticketed, like the Cathedral and Jupiter's Temple or the Baptistry.
We came from the north with the Roman chariot, until the center, but then you had to stop in the center, walk out, and then walk here, and then meet the king maybe here, maybe somewhere in the back, we don't know that. This looked different. This was a dome, and above was blue glitter mosaics. And here around was gray, and the floor was black and white. And so it was like heaven and earth.
This is the Peristyle, which was once the courtyard of the palace, surrounded by Corinthian columns and granite imported from Egypt. It is the beating heart of the city of Split. This long walkway of the Peristyle was used to impress and impose the might and majesty of Jupiter's son, Diocletian. As you enter, on the left you'll see the Split Cathedral, or Cathedral of St. Dominus. In front of you will be Diocletian's basement entrance to the Cellars. On the right is the former temple of Jupiter, now the Baptistry. The Peristyle is on the east side of the palace, near where the emperor's sleeping quarters would have been. There was once 3 churches here, but only the Temple of Jupiter, or Baptistry, remains today. Diocletian also brought in 12 sphinxes to Split after Diocletian put down a rebellion in Egypt somewhere around 297. Unfortunately, only one survived and is now standing in the Peristyle. As we wandered our way through this Roman-turned-modern city, it wasn't difficult to let your imagination run wild. We headed over to the Bronze Gate on the south side, on the Cardo. It's rather plain and unassuming. It has no sculptures or anything, but this was once the escape route
for the emperor into the harbor should the city ever be attacked. We then headed over to Porta Aria, the Golden Gate on the north side. This is the gate that Diocletian would have walked through on his way to the palace. On the facade, you would have found 4 sculptures of Diocletian, Maximin, Galerius, and Constantine Chlorus. The street that leads through the gate will lead you to the Peristyle and the Cardo Street. As you walk down the street, you will run straight into the statue of Gregory of Nin. Gregory was a bishop who defied the Pope by teaching the Bible in the Croatian language, and it is said that if you rub his big toe, you can have a little bit of good luck.
Now we are in Piazza, like in Italy. In Italy you have many piazzas, but here you only have one. You always have one. Like in Dalmatia, when it says piazza, it means like the main street, the main square. Okay. The main square. And now we are changing times. So now we are in different time, 18th, 19th century. So when you see these colorful houses, then you know it's Austria, 18th, 19th century.
The old homes of Split were often built in this style, where the kitchens were always on the top floor. So if a fire broke out, which was common, it would be easier to put it out before it reached the sleeping quarters in the middle floor. They also had a hole carved into the staircase where they could tie their donkey, and where the family animals would live in the cove under the stairs, where in modern times, it's where the garbage cans are usually kept. Our guide brought us to this Austrian-built square, helped us take some fabulous photos, then we left on our own for a few hours to wander in the places in the city we may have missed, or to grab some grub.
All right, so we are on our way to Fig, which is a restaurant that one of my friends that lives here suggested. They said that the food is really good. That tour was so good. I will drop his information in the description box below so that you guys can come and experience it as well. And I think we're gonna head back to St. Dominus Church as well as the mausoleum and show you guys the inside of those buildings as well. So excited. But we're hangry, so gonna go food time. We're here at Fig, and it has a lot of great vegetarian options as well as regular dishes. They do serve breakfast until 1 p.m. and then after that it's lunch and dinner. They don't take reservations, but they have a great menu and selection of drinks. These are some of the original palace floor of Diocletian's palace. And then as you look up right behind me, this kind of hexagonal building was the mausoleum for Diocletian. Diocletian was notorious for both killing and torturing Christians. So when he died, they turned this mausoleum, this hexagonal building behind me, into a cathedral. This is where karma came into play, because he built this massive palace for himself, this giant mausoleum, and then after his death, everything that he had built was basically destroyed by Christians and turned into cathedrals. Now, as I was talking to our guide, he said, you know, there were different sects of Christians at the time, and there were different things that he had been dealing with in his government. So it's just interesting to hear his take on it, that, you know, we weren't there at the time. There are a lot of things that are written in history that may or may not be true, but many history books do reflect that he was notoriously, as were the Romans, known for killing and torturing Christians.
When you go into the cathedral, make sure you spot the frescoes, marble pulpit, and Romanesque type carvings. Notice the massive stone blocks rising up from the ground, towering 73 feet or 24 meters above you, with a 9-foot or 3-meter thick walls. The granite that makes up the columns is said to have been brought all the way from Egypt. Make sure to look at the viewing window in the lower part of the floor, where you can see the original mosaic of the mausoleum. The walnut carved door is from 1214, with 12 panels all representing parts of Christ's life. Immediately to your left, you will have the Romanesque pulpit made from marble and the symbol of St. John on the top. Over the main altar, you will see paintings by Pietro Ferrari that depict the life of St. Dominus. If you go up the stairs, there you will find the treasury with religious items dating from the 7th century. Just behind the church is where you find the Romanesque Gothic style bell tower that took over 300 years to complete. The bell tower is 187 feet or 57 meters tall, but if you want to get to the top of it, you have to climb up those stairs. The payoff is a stunning view of Split.
All right, so we're headed over to the Baptistry, and this was the temple of Jupiter. Now, Diocletian actually thought, like most emperors, that he was the literal son of Jupiter, therefore thinking he was a god, which is probably why he was able to justify, or thought he was able to justify, everything that he did.
If you look closely at the Baptistry, it's one of the most unique in the world because it has both Christian and pagan symbols still on it. Surrounding the Baptistry, you'll find sarcophagi of some of the first bishops of Split, as well as the statue of St. John the Baptist, and on the ceiling you can see the rare preserved Roman roof that has faces and flowers still carved in it. It was then back over to Diocletian's Cellars to pick up a few souvenirs to take home to loved ones. While Split's main draw is definitely Diocletian's palace, if you have more time, Split is also known for its amazing nightlife, coffee shops, food, and incredible island hopping tours like to the famous Blue Cave. I think our day trip to Dubrovnik gave us a good taste of the city. We found it a bit crowded with cruise ship tours when we went, but our small group was easily able to navigate around them. Make sure to check out culturetrekking.com for more detailed history of Split and guides to Split and beyond. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one, where we start our 1,500-mile Balkan road trip to Proticelli and Krufka waterfalls.